Hello, good evening. It is your host, Emmanuel Isaiah Smith, and today's date is Thursday, October 9th, 2025. The time is 8:03 p.m., and I am in Miami, Florida. The topic of today's lecture is Scorched Earth Policy. And before I get into the nature and character of the Scorched Earth Policy attack in gang stalking campaigns, I would like to address a certain matter that I'm seeing. So, I've used already every possible negative adjective that I could possibly use to describe liaisons, undercover operatives, gang stalkers, and the orchestrators. I've exhausted my vocabulary with respect to adjectives that I could use for these people. I've called them stupid. I've called them deleterious. I've called them Joe Blow schmucks. I've called them useful idiots. I've called them punks. I've called them sissies. I've called them cowards. I have called them lowlives. I've called them scumbags. I've called them nitwits. I have called them every possible low name or low insulting thing that I could possibly come up with. And this is across the demographic spectrum, okay? Yes, I'm in South Florida now. Yes, it's predominantly Cuban, but I was using these adjectives to describe gang stalkers when I lived in Ohio as well. Okay? So, when I use these terms to describe the orchestrators of gang stalking, okay, that's the people who pounded it through Congress. When I use these adjectives to describe liaisons, when I use them to describe undercover operatives, when I use them to describe gang stalkers themselves, I'm serious. This is not a game I'm playing with these people. Okay, I don't care who you are. I don't care what state you come from. I don't care what your demographic designation is. All of these adjectives I verbally and electronically apply to you if you participate in this thuggish signaling mechanism called clandestine gang stalking. Okay? You are a part of the most horrifyingly atrocious governmental blunder in the history of humankind. Okay, I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to be around you. I don't want to collect any of your germs that you fling through the air. Okay, I don't want to interact with you. I don't want anything to do with you or your kind. Do you understand that? Okay, do you understand get lost in the name of the United States Constitution? Okay, for all you religious zealots that practice gang stalking, get lost in the name of your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Okay, I'm tired of seeing you. I'm tired of coming in contact with you. Okay, and so is my significant other, Lori. She doesn't want any part of you either. You annoy her just as bad as you annoy me. Your mechanisms are thuggish. They're problematic. They are annoying. They are disruptive, and they are state sanctioned. Okay? I don't want any part of any of you. As a matter of fact, most of you, from what I can gather, that practice gang stalking and that thuggish signaling mechanism, if you didn't practice gang stalking, just observing you personally, even if you didn't practice gang stalking, I would still not want to be anywhere near you or around you. Most of the kinds of you that pop up out of nowhere and sort of make your way towards me with this signaling mechanism are not the kind of people I'd want to be around anyhow. Okay? If I were somewhere in the North Pole, living in an igloo, and you came around with an inflatable tent that had a jacuzzi in it, I would tell you to get the hell lost and take your damn tent with you. Okay? That is how I feel about the people that practice this thuggery. Okay, here's another example. If I were on a desert island, let's say I were on Gilligan's Island, right? And I were totally stranded. I mean, I'm talking so stranded that I was forced to fish by hand for my dinner. Okay, cut coconuts out of the trees, that kind of thing. And you came by me with a cruise ship with all the amenities, offering to take me back to the United States. You know what I tell you? I tell you, get the hell lost. Okay, let's do another example, because these gang stalkers, they're hard-headed. Okay, they just do what they're told. They're very oblivious to reality. Okay, so I don't think the first two, I already can see that the first two examples didn't register. So let me try a third. If I were falling out of an airplane with a parachute, and that parachute were failing to inflate, and I were just free falling from 30,000 feet up, and one of your kinds of people, okay, your gang stalkers, your useful idiots, your crowd stalkers, your hate stalkers, your cause stalkers, your community harassers, you bumbling, fumbling signal takers that use some sort of an organized street harassment mechanism to make their lives more interesting. If you were to come around me and I were free falling from 30,000 feet in the air, okay, and my parachute were not inflating, and you were to make a straight V line for me, you dived out of the plane and now you're headed my way, and your parachute works, and you try to assist me by connecting myself to yourself so that your parachute would save both of us in midair. Listen to me, listen, in midair, falling from 30,000 feet, I would tell you right there in midair as I'm falling to take your damn parachute and you with it and get the hell lost. Let me try another one, because this is not registering. This is not registering. Because some of you just have sort of this aloofness to you. Okay, you street harassment stalker types. It's obvious. It's so obvious who you are. Okay, I can see you coming a mile away. It's just how you carry yourself. Okay, your undercover operatives, your liaisons, all of you just all have this sort of otherworldly aloofness to you. I mean, it's strikingly off-putting. Okay, and all you do is pester and annoy. Okay, let's try another example, okay? And hopefully you get this. If I were in a speeding car, right? Let's say my car were going down the interstate at 200 miles an hour, right? And the pedal got stuck to the floor and I could no longer use the brakes anymore either. And I were just speeding down the interstate at 200 miles an hour, just free falling, just boom, 200 miles an hour, okay? NASCAR style, okay? F1 racing style, okay? And one of you pulled up beside me in some sort of a padded vehicle that was supposed to restrain my speed, I would tell you and that padded vehicle to get the hell lost. I'll figure this out myself. Just like the other scenarios. Okay? All the scenarios I've presented tonight, I'll figure it out myself. Okay? I'll figure it out myself. Get the hell lost. That's how I feel about gang stalkers. Okay? That's how I feel about liaisons. That's how I feel about you undercover operatives. You conduct yourselves like zoo animals. Do you understand? This is not a game, a back and forth I'm doing with you. I really feel this way about you. Look at all the videos I put up. Okay, there are several hundred, if not in the thousands, across all my social media pages. Would I go through all of this if I were not serious? I'm serious about you, and I hope one day the Congress of the United States repeals the thing or just deletes the damn thing and you all can go back to your families. You probably haven't seen them in a few years. Some of you are really dedicated to this thing. So I hope I've made my point, and not just over the air. Not just over the air. Okay, when I see you in person, I feel this way about you as well. And quite frankly, I don't want you around my significant other, Lori, either. Do you understand? And I'm serious. I mean, you follow me using a state-sanctioned signaling mechanism. Just think of that for a second. You look in the mirror every day at some point, as most people do. At some point, you stalkers, you liaisons, you undercover operatives, at some point you look in the mirror every day and you look at yourself, your image. And you know what you have to ascertain, you know what you have to accept, you know what you have to come to terms with. You are a person, okay, a citizen of a country who uses a state-sanctioned signaling mechanism to pester people in public. I'm going to say that one more time. I'm going to say that one more time for emphasis because, like I said, a lot of you are very hard-headed and you act like you don't understand stuff. You look in the mirror and you see a person that uses a state-sanctioned signaling mechanism to go out into public and pester people. Okay, I'm going to say that a third time. Okay, there is not going to be any question by the end of this lecture what I think of the orchestrators of gang stalking, the liaisons, the undercover operatives, and the stalkers themselves. There is not going to be any question as to how I feel about you. Now, this is across the demographic spectrum now. I don't care what your demographic is or what your background is. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care which God you worship. You look into the mirror and the person looking back at you participates in a state-sanctioned signaling mechanism in which you go out into public regularly, if not daily, and pester people. Let's get to the lecture, ladies and gentlemen. The lecture is called Scorched Earth Policy. What is scorched earth policy? It is a term that most persons on this planet are not familiar with. Scorched earth policy it's a war tactic. It's an illegal war tactic. It's one that was banned by the Geneva Conventions of 1977, if I'm not mistaken, as a war crime and an atrocity. What is scorched earth policy, ladies and gentlemen, and how does it factor into clandestine gang stalking campaigns? Well, here's how. So, scorched earth policy was when two enemies in an armed conflict would be fighting one another. Obviously, how two sides of opposing armies do. And at some point, one of them decides to use the opposing army's surroundings as a weapon against them. That's essentially what scorched earth policy is. It's when you use your opponent's surroundings as a weapon against him. As opposed to fighting the enemy, you destroy or corrupt his surroundings and let that be your attack, as opposed to a direct attack. I'll give you an example. So let's say country A and country B are fighting an armed conflict. Country A, rather than do a stealth bombing attack or an army tank attack or a rifle attack on the opposing army, rather than doing such an attack, like a conventional attack, rather they find out where country B's water supply is, and they poison the water supply so that the soldiers of country B and the soldiers' helpers, like the doctors and the nurses and seamstresses and so forth, perish on the battlefield. That is an example of scorched earth policy. You are destroying or corrupting your opponent's surroundings rather than using conventional warfare against your opponent. Let's look at another example. Country A and country B are fighting a conventional war, and country B decides to use a scorched earth tactic to gain the military advantage over country A. So rather than using a conventional act of war against country A, country B finds out where the wheat field of country A is, particularly the rations resource, and they strap pieces of straw to the tail of a fox, light the straw on fire, and send the fox through the wheat field. The fire is eventually going to catch onto the pieces of wheat in the wheat field, and that fire will spread about, destroying the wheat field. That is not conventional warfare. That is scorched earth policy. Rather than an act of conventional warfare against country A, Country B has decided to destroy the food resources for Country A, thus making it more difficult for Country A to ready themselves for battle. So those are two examples of scorched earth policy. You're not fighting the enemy, you're destroying or corrupting the enemy's surroundings so that they cannot ready themselves for battle against you. That is considered atrocious wartime behavior and can be met with sanctions by the United Nations if any such tactic were ever used. Now, how does scorched earth policy compare to clandestine gang stalking? Well, I have to remind you that persons who participate in gang stalking are useful idiots, and they are not the type of people that are capable of using military stratagem or formation building or personnel mobilization. They're simply the people who take the signal and do what the hell they're told to do. Okay, so they're not the ones putting together the scorched earth aspect of gang stalking. Scorched earth in a gang stalking campaign, which is a war that is fought between the U.S. federal government and a citizen. It is a covert war on that citizen's sovereignty and their trajectory through time and space. Period. That's why one of the names of gang stalking is covert war. Now, in this war, the U.S. federal establishment, its liaisons, they don't fight conventionally. They use scorched earth tactics to destabilize and ultimately cause basically whatever harm they can to the target wherever they can. They use burglaries and vandalisms to a person's home. Okay, they'll rig your stove to emit toxic levels of gas throughout your home. I had that done to me a few times when I was living in Dayton, Ohio, while attending the University of Dayton. Some punk was, so I'm going to call them a stalker because that's obviously what they were. They were operating off of signals and instructions from third parties who are too gelatin to show their face to me. They were breaking into my home and doing things to my stove that caused it to leak gas. And I would come home from school, from university, from classes, and my entire home would smell like gas. And there were times where I actually had to step out of my home and go to hotels until the gas company was able to come to my home and fix the problem, or the maintenance staff, whichever. I've had them break into my home and contaminate my food. I've had them break into my home and contaminate my juice and milk. Okay, I've had them damage my vehicle. All right, they attempted to pull the catalytic converter off at one time, but that particular model of car that I had, the catalytic converter was fastened on in a unconventional way to where you needed a special device to remove it, but they tried to snatch my catalytic converter off. And when I say they, I'm talking about the other side. Okay, this is a war. It's a covert war. And yes, the other side are the gang stalkers. I'm the targeted person. I'm the one that has to endure their thuggery on a daily basis. Okay, so when I say them, that's who I'm talking about. It's going to be a combination of all of the above. It's going to be the liaisons, it's going to be the undercover operatives, and it's going to be the stalkers themselves, because they all use the same signaling mechanism, the same pestering tactics, the same germ spreading devices, and the same overall mechanism to pester people. The liaisons, the stalkers, and the undercover operatives, they are all one unit, and they all use the same kind of tactics to perpetually annoy, pester, and attack a sovereign U.S. citizen. They all use the same stuff. So when I say they, just imagine sort of a medley or a concoction that includes all three of these groups. So, my apartment was vandalized, my food contaminated, my car tampered with, the gas pipes in my home's tampered with. Alright? I would go to a restaurant and the person making my food would receive some signal from outside to contaminate the food before they gave it to me. I can't tell you how many items of consumable rations I had to return to restaurants and various other eating establishments because it was contaminated by the time I realized it was time to eat it. These aren't conventional warfare tactics. These are not toe-to-toe battles. These are not duels. This is a collection, an endless collection of useful idiot gang stalkers who use a system of signals to find a target. Once they find the target, they descend upon him with pestering and annoyance, and sometimes violence, depending on what the signal was and who the stalker is. So, what you have is a situation where it's not one-on-one. This isn't a boxing match. You could approach it like one if you're a targeted individual, particularly with the protect yourself at all times rule. But this ain't a boxing match. This isn't an MMA contest. Okay, this isn't a kickboxing match. This isn't even an arm wrestling contest. Okay, this is a standing army of state-sanctioned enemy belligerents that are mobilized with state-sanctioned mechanisms to a target. A target. And some of the more snarky stalkers might hear this and say, well, why don't all the targets organize themselves and make an army of their self, and it can be it can be an army of targets against the army of stalkers. Go to hell. If that's the way you look at this. Okay? Gang stalking is a state-sanctioned mechanism. Okay? It has endless recruiting potential. And it has the power of the state behind it. Okay? As a social engineering platform, as a depopulation control platform, and as a way of artificially engineering who can prosper in society and who can, in accordance with the likely beliefs of the gang stalkers themselves. So don't give me that. This is not, in any respect or any capacity, a toe-to-toe battle. Okay? Now, I don't claim to know a lot of targeted persons myself. I know my targeted, my significant other, Lori, is, which is especially disgusting to me considering that she's a female and she has to deal with a lot of the same pestering tactics that I have to deal with. And I'm a grown man, 6'5", north of 250 pounds, a former athlete myself. She's a woman, 5'3", all of 125 pounds. Was a cheerleader back in high school. She has to deal with all the same pestering tactics I have to deal with. And she has grown men targeting her too. That's how you know this program is gelatin and spineless. Because in order to make your social engineering project work, you have to go after men, women, and children to make your point. This is not toe-to-toe battles, ladies and gentlemen. This is scorched earth policy. They will attack you at work. They will attack you in your place of higher learning. They will attack you at your place of worship. They will attack you anywhere and however possible. They try to make it look like, oh, this is organized, this is disciplined, we're just keeping an eye on certain people in certain scenarios. It is state-sanctioned war, ladies and gentlemen. And the war is not toe-to-toe. As a matter of fact, it's homicidal. I've called it state-sanctioned murder myself. Okay? Destroy the targeted person's surroundings. You don't have to destroy him, although they try to do that too. This is cowardly warfare, ladies and gentlemen, okay? If they're not tampering with your gas pipes or trying to destroy your automobile or flinging germs at you through the air or contaminating your food or your beverages, they're using synchronized vehicular obstruction of movement and trying to run you over with vehicles. So if we don't get them one way, damn it, we're going to get them another. If our synchronized disease spreading, I often call it airborne bacteria disease flinging and germ warfare flinging and bacteria flinging. Yeah, they like to blow snot in the air and sneeze on people and cough on people and use other disgusting bodily functions in close range to people so as to increase the possibility of a germ or bacterial infection being spread. One could call that an act of scorched earth policy because you're destroying the person's air. I mean, I imagine if country A and country B were fighting and country A were to fly over top of country B and drop a bomb full of streptococcus, which is a germ, over top of country B, getting not only its military but its citizens sick in order to win the war, that would be an act of scorched earth policy right there. Why? Because you're destroying the opponent's air. It's not an act of conventional warfare. You're not going after the opposing army. You're going after the opposing army's air. You're contaminating the air. You're poisoning the people. That is an act of unconventional warfare, and it's scorched earth policy. Destroy your enemy's surroundings so that your fight against the enemy will be easier. What has the intelligence community and the national security apparatus in this community authorized with respect to clandestine gang stalking, particularly with respect to scorched earth policy? Destroy the targeted person's air. Use useful idiot stalkers in any capacity you can, the ones that know all the tricks on how to contaminate somebody's air at close range. Use them, destroy his air, contaminate his food, use signals to direct stalkers to a targeted person while he or she is eating and find ways to fling bacteria at them through the air into their food with the hope that they get sick. Destroy the target's air. Destroy the target's food. Destroy the target's home. Destroy the target's vehicle. Destroy the target's workplace experience. Destroy the target's university experience. Destroy the target's church experience or what have you. I'm not a guy that goes to church much. Okay? My interactions with the Creator are my own. And quite frankly, I don't need a third party to tell me how to interact with the Creator. But while I did go to church, yes, there were clandestine signaling mechanisms in play that were aimed at destroying my church experience. Now listen, I am not here to preach to anyone as to how they should live their life. If you want to be a gang stalker, if you want to use a covert signaling mechanism when you're out and about so that you'll have an opportunity to pester people without recourse because it makes your life more interesting, go right ahead. I'm just here to let you know that I see everything you do, that I'm aware that you are a state-sanctioned pesterer, and I'm also aware that your mechanism is not unique or special to you. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people all across the United States that use the same mechanisms that you use. You're not special, they're not special. You're not chosen, they're not chosen. You're not golden, and they're not golden. All right, and I'm sorry so many of you think you are special because you participate in a signaling mechanism. Take my jacket off. Take my jacket off, ladies and gentlemen. Give me 1 second. I will return to the lecture here in a second. And I already know that the destroy the target's credibility and their sanity and their auspices and their reasoning and their logic. That's all part of gang stalking, ladies and gentlemen. That's already in the books. That was already in the cards, ladies and gentlemen. Before this program was ever implemented, post 9/11, it was already in the cards. Okay? Anyone who comes forward about this is going to be vilified, mocked, and called insane or psychotic or schizophrenic. It's simply in the DNA of gang stalking. It's a part of it. You are going to be labeled when you come forward about this social disease called clandestine gang stalking. We're not just destroying the person's home. We're not just destroying their air. We're not just destroying their food. We're not just destroying their workplace or occupational situations, but we're going to destroy their image and credibility. Okay? Scorched earth policy. Destroy the target's surroundings and the target will fall. Why did the United Nations identify scorched earth policy as an atrocious war crime and or a crime against humanity? It's because it's cowardly. Don't you dare wage a war on me and then send your minions to my home when I'm not there to mess it up. Don't wage a war on me, America, and then send your minions to my home when I'm asleep to damage my car. Don't wage a war on me, America, then send your minions to my exact location using a signaling mechanism to intercept my data and my words so that they can create a false narrative out of it. Don't wage a war on me, United States, and then send your minions to my refrigerator when I'm out and about to contaminate my food so that I get sick when I come back and eat it. Really, what the hell kind of country wages a war on its own citizens anyhow? Certainly not a democracy. Certainly not a constitutional republic. Certainly no sovereign territorial entity that I know of. What kind of country sends minion stalkers past me in a vehicle to listen to what I'm saying using bugging equipment so that they can go take it to their liaisons and create some sort of a threat narrative out of what I'm saying? Don't wage a war on me, United States, and then send your minions to go and pester my significant other. All right? You're going to wage a war on me, stalkers, and I got to use the S at the end. I got to use the plural. I got to say stalkers. This isn't just one person, although they can cause one person or signal one person to approach you with some sort of a death threat or a threat of violence to try and make you as a target look timid in front of a pack of stalkers that are watching you from 200 yards away with binoculars, because it makes them feel better about what they do. Don't wage a war on me and try to act like a man. You understand? You didn't think that this program was going to be exposed. You thought you were going to be able to pester me and countless other people wholesale with no recourse, with no penalty, and with no consequences because you work for the state. Well, you got found out, buddy. And I use that term buddy in the most non-literal manner you could possibly imagine. You want to watch me? You want to watch Smith? I'll tell you what. Why don't you watch the people, and there's a bunch of them, not only in Miami-Dade County, but in Tennessee and Ohio too, that put together a failed murder-for-hire plot against me. And the federal authorities that were sort of watching me at that time, who knew who was behind it, they didn't prosecute not a single one of them. As a matter of fact, the liaisons used street theater to disrupt that plot. And now those animals are free as birds, having repented of what they attempted to do, although it was thwarted. You know how it was thwarted? They were spying on me and my significant other one night using bugging equipment and surveillance equipment that they use around my abode. And they heard me talking about the Adelson family murder trials that took place from 2014 to the present day. Now, these trials involved the Adelson dental dynasty, which is centered in Tallahassee, Florida, namely a dental dynasty that grew to be very successful, particularly over the past 15 years. And this dental dynasty had a useful idiot sort of mechanism that it used to try and eliminate, well, they did eliminate the ex-husband of one of the family members. And this murder for hire plot involved, according to the prosecution, all the family members. And I was talking to my significant other about this situation, and they heard it over the loudspeaker. And I also included, and Florida's a death penalty state too, so all the parties involved are lucky they didn't get that. And the stalkers that were listening started trembling. They probably all pissed their pants. And they dismantled. And they all kind of scurried off their separate ways. So, such is the trajectory of gang stalkers who get found out, or gang stalkers who get put in their place. They appear having taken signals from somebody. They pester and piss off, and then they scurry the hell off somewhere until their next opportunity to pester somebody comes along. That's how they operate. And it's state-sanctioned pestering. And it's a shame that the United States federal establishment co-signs this garbage. And it's okay if the Congress of the United States is too gelatin to act, if the Supreme Court is too gelatin to act, if the national security apparatus in this country is too gelatin to act, if the American people are too gelatin to act, I'm not. And I've been writing about gang stalking for 10 years, ladies and gentlemen. I can assure you that my work has hit powerful ears. That my work has hit the ears of people who want to investigate this and remedy the political scourge. It's called connecting the dots. I'll be Sherlock Holmes. I'll solve the mystery. I'll bring the conclusion of it to the ears of the masses. I have no problem with that whatsoever. As a matter of fact, after I expose gang stalking, I'll go home and put together a 1,500-piece puzzle to celebrate. And I'll put together that puzzle quick and easy as you could possibly imagine, because I've been putting together puzzles and connecting dots for 10 years now. And I've reached the pinnacle of the matter. I've reached the crest, the crux of the situation. And I've put it online for the whole world to see. And what do gang stalkers have to say in response to that? Well, I don't know. You'll have to ask their liaisons. You'll have to ask whoever it is that's giving them their signals what they're going to say next. Because gang stalkers ultimately are too empty-headed in and of themselves to come up with something to say to all this. They got to wait for somebody to tell them what to say, so that they can stay with the herd mentality, so that they can stay with the group and the bunch, so that they can continue on using this organized pestering mechanism without recourse and ride off into the sunset like the Lone Ranger. Scorched earth policy, ladies and gentlemen: destroy your enemy's surroundings as opposed to engaging them in combat. Burn your enemy's house down. That's probably what they were trying to do to my apartment when they were tampering with the gas. All right? Burn your enemy's car down. Sabotage their workplace experience. Give hostile third parties information as to where they're headed using your Stingray device GPS interceptors. Give these same useful idiots knowledge of who the target is, where they're from, what they look like, and how you can best harm them. Use as many third parties as possible, and use as many of your disgusting, hostile, and pandering gestures when you get up close to the target, so that you feel safe. Especially you undercovers. You guys have a shadow unit that follow you everywhere. And when you come within close proximity of the target, your shadow unit descends upon the target with all kinds of pestering and attack mechanisms. Ladies and gentlemen, why do we have laws? Why do we have courtrooms? Why do we have constitutions? Easy, because there's no limit to the depth of human depravity. If we didn't have legal guidelines for how a person should conduct themselves throughout the course of their existence on this earth, there's no telling what people would be doing to each other right now. If humanity had not annihilated itself, there's no telling how depraved this world would be. And I think a glowing and shining example of this is the fact that our very legal code has been contaminated by deleterious third parties who want to use the disastrous pestering mechanism known as gang stalking in order to institute social change, the kind of change they want. Keep certain segments of the population at bay, allow other segments of the population to thrive. Let's let our clandestine signaling mechanism become the new American norm, and people who do not know this signaling mechanism will be at our mercy. Thanks for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen.